Hi, this is Pastor Dave. Welcome to Persistent Hope. I hope you had a good weekend. Last week we started looking at the character of God's sovereignty. Now, to say that God is sovereign is to say that He is supreme over all things, that there is no one above Him. But when we look at our world around us and all that goes wrong, it's hard to imagine that there's a loving God who understands, who's in control, and yet allows these things to happen. So we began talking about the fact that one sign of God's sovereignty is that He gives us all freedom to choose. So we can choose to do what God wants to do in and through our lives, or we can choose not to. And how we see and understand who God is will affect how we see the world around us, how we see other people, and even how we see ourselves. And this is especially true as we try to understand what God's sovereignty means in our lives. Now, let me give you another expression that is often said, but really doesn't give an accurate description of God. Here's the expression: everything that happens is God's will. Everything that happens is God's will. It's clear that things happen every day that are not God's will, but they do happen because people are free to choose, and they choose to disobey. The Old Testament has many stories of how God sent prophets, men and women of God, to the nation of Israel to tell them that they were not obeying His instructions. You see, God wanted to bless them and allow them to flourish and be a great nation, and yet they were continuing to disobey. Every time God sent a prophet to tell them of this fact, He was giving them an opportunity to make a different choice. If they continued in the way they were going, there were going to be consequences. Take a moment right now, next time you're going to drive, and look out at any field. Any field you look at right now, you'll know what was planted in the spring. You know why? Because look what's come up, obviously. And by the way, if you're a real farmer, you can say all sorts of things that the rest of us don't understand about, pre-emergent herbicide, and is there enough yield potential, and has there been enough rain, and all this stuff. But you'll know what's planted because look what's come up. Another indication that God is sovereign is in that simple law of sowing and reaping. This example is used a lot in the Bible. What you plant is what comes up. Every time someone chooses to disobey God, they are planting seeds of disobedience, and there will be a very costly harvest that will affect lots of people. But every day we can choose to pray as Jesus taught us. And what did He say? Pray this way: Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. And what was next? Your will be done. You can choose to do His will every day. No, not everything that happens is God's will, but it's always His will that you ask Him for guidance, wisdom, and direction. I have an assignment for you. Sometime today, bow your head and simply say, Lord, I want to do your will today. Lord, I want to do your will today. God bless. Okay, you guys, I think as Christ followers, we're going to get into times of our lives where things happen that make us wonder if what we've been doing is God's will. We kind of can't help ourselves. Sometimes we're trying to do the right thing and things go wrong. And you wonder, did I miss God's signal? Did I think He was telling me to do that and He wasn't? And it's a normal question to ask when things go badly. And sometimes you'll have other people come to you if you're a leader and ask you the same question. I thought I was following God's will, and now everything's fallen apart. There's a goodness to that question because we should always make sure why we're doing what we're doing is for His glory. His will is that He be given glory, that He's able to shine in us and through us. That's His will. And it's seen like in Thessalonians where it says, in everything give thanks. Well, you can only do that when God is shining through you. being light in the world. That's because God working in and through us. So it's good when bad things happen and do a little gut check. Am I doing God's will? Did I miss a signal somewhere? But there's a dangerous crossover to where we base the question, am I doing God's will, not on a continued effort to want to make sure we're walking in good motive with a desire to bring glory to Him. No, we're asking the question if things are going lousy. So suddenly what has driven us to ask the question, God, am I walking in your will, are the things that I don't like that are happening. And I want to suggest to you it's human, but it kind of makes me the reason why I'm asking the question, not His glory, not His purposes. God, I don't like what's happening. Did I miss something? And you know, I'm asking, did I miss something? Because I want to make it right so this lousy thing that's happening is going to stop. Look, there are times when things go badly and you've done everything correctly. When it says in the Bible, God works together for the good to all those who love Him and are called according to His purpose, that doesn't mean, hey, if you're following Him, everything's going to just go hunky-dory. It doesn't. In fact, we have things in our life that may never turn out the way we want. But that's because it's not about our life, it's about His glory. We live in a broken world with a wily enemy, with fractured, broken, self-centered people, and you're one of them. And with this journey of a God who sometimes, like He did with Jesus, would walk Him from the sacredness of the baptism scene, the very next verse, being led to a wilderness. Sometimes even God leads us to these difficult places, not to show us what we've done wrong, but to remind us on whom we are to depend. You see, as we learn that, that's our role as Christ followers, to teach other people. God can be trusted, and when things go bad, you can still trust Him. That's why Romans says, so present your bodies to God, Romans 12, right? Verse 1. When you do that, verse 2, you're going to show that God's will is good and acceptable and perfect. We don't judge God's will being good because things go good. We judge His will being good because He is good and His will is good. And we're not going to show that by how wonderful life is, but by how solid our faith is when things go so tough.